Everyone sees the photos from my grandson Isaiah's 8th birthday party. The balloons, the decorations, the smiling faces. 43 people gathered in my son's backyard in Memorial, Houston, on a perfect Saturday afternoon in June. The bounce house, the superhero decorations, the 3-tier cake from Craftsman Bakery. Picture-perfect moments captured on dozens of cell phones. But nobody knows what happened in the 17 minutes before we were supposed to cut that cake. Nobody knows that my 8-year-old grandson saved 43 lives that day. And nobody knows how close I came to losing everyone I love because I trusted the wrong person for 9 years. Before I tell you what my grandson whispered in my ear that changed everything, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from right now? What time is it there? Drop a comment below and tell me. And if you believe that children sometimes see what adults miss, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. Because this story is about paying attention when it matters most. It's about trusting your instincts, even when the truth seems impossible. My name is Thaddeus Monroe Bridgewater. I'm 67 years old, born and raised right here in Houston, Texas. I spent 35 years building Bridgewater commercial properties from a single office space into one of the most respected commercial real estate firms in Southeast Texas. We managed properties worth over $200 million by the time I retired 3 years ago. I worked hard for everything I have, and I made sure my family would never want for anything. My wife Lorraine and I have been married for 44 years. We met at Texas Southern University back in 1978. She was studying education. I was in business. We got married the summer after graduation in a small ceremony at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. That same church has been our spiritual home ever since. 42 years of Sunday services, community outreach, building relationships that became family. We had one son, Sterling Quincy Bridgewater. We named him Sterling because I wanted him to have a name that meant something valuable, something precious. And that boy was precious to us. We raised him with strong values, sent him to the best schools we could afford. First, he went to St. John's School here in Houston, then on to Morehouse College in Atlanta. He came back to Houston with a business degree and the kind of confidence that comes from knowing who you are and where you come from. Sterling started his own consulting firm when he was 26. Business strategy, financial planning, helping small businesses grow. I was so proud of him. He did it on his own, didn't ask me for money or connections. He wanted to build something himself, and I respected that immensely. By the time he was 30, he was doing well, real well, at his own office in the Galleria area, driving a BMW, living in a nice condo in Midtown. Then he met Celeste Renee at a charity gala in 2016. She was working pharmaceutical sales for a company out of Austin, attending the gala as a representative. Celeste came from what seemed like a good family. Her father was a retired postal worker. Her mother taught elementary school in Austin for 30 years. Solid working-class people who valued education and hard work. Celeste had gone to Prairie View A&M, graduated with honors in business administration. She was beautiful, articulate, ambitious. Everything you'd want in a daughter-in-law. Sterling brought her to Sunday dinner about 2 months after they started dating. I remember that day clearly. It was October 2016, still warm in Houston the way it gets. Lorraine had made her famous pot roast with all the fixings. Celeste showed up in a tasteful navy dress, brought flowers for Lorraine and a bottle of good bourbon for me. She knew how to make an impression without being showy about it. Lorraine fell in love with her immediately. They talked in the kitchen for over an hour while Sterling and I watched the Texans game. When Lorraine came out, she was beaming. She pulled me aside and whispered, "That's the one. That's our daughter-in-law." I was more cautious. I'm always cautious when it comes to my son. I watched Celeste carefully over the next few months. She said all the right things, asked thoughtful questions about my business, about our family history, about our church community. She seemed genuinely interested in becoming part of our family, not just dating Sterling for what he could provide. They got engaged in March of 2017. Sterling took her to Galveston, proposed on the beach at sunset with a ring he'd saved for months to buy. When they came to tell us, I saw the joy in my son's eyes, and I thought, maybe Lorraine was right. Maybe this was the one. The wedding was in June of 2017 at Wheeler Avenue Baptist. 200 guests packed that church. Celeste's family came up from Austin. We had friends from all over Texas. The reception was at the Four Seasons downtown. I spared no expense. Open bar, live band playing everything from Motown to contemporary R&B, the works. I wanted my son to start his marriage, knowing his family supported him completely. That wedding cost me $75,000, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. They bought a house in Memorial the following year. Beautiful 4-bedroom, 3-bath home on Sagewood Lane, one of those tree-lined streets where kids ride bikes and neighbors know each other's names. 2-car garage, big backyard perfect for the children they were planning. The neighborhood was exactly what they needed. Good schools, safe streets, the kind of place where you don't worry about your kids playing outside. Their first child, Isaiah Matthias Bridgewater, was born in April of 2018. I was in the delivery room when that boy came into the world, and I'm not ashamed to say I cried like a baby myself. There's something about becoming a grandfather that changes you fundamentally. All the responsibility of being a father, but with this pure, uncomplicated joy mixed in. I could spoil this child, love him without reservation, and watch him grow, knowing I'd help create the next generation of Bridgewaters. Isaiah was smart from the start. Talking early, reading by age 4, asking questions about everything under the sun. He looked like Sterling did at that age. Same curious brown eyes, same quick smile, same way of tilting his head when he was thinking. Lorraine and I would babysit every Wednesday evening, so Sterling and Celeste could have date night. Those were some of my favorite evenings. Reading to Isaiah, teaching him to count, watching him discover how the world works. Then, Amara Grace was born in May of 2021, a little girl with her mother's beauty and her grandmother's spirited personality. She was feisty from day one, fearless, always trying to keep up with her big brother, even though she was 3 years younger. The family felt complete. Sunday dinners became the highlight of my week. Sterling, Celeste, and the kids would come to our house in River Oaks after church. Lorraine and Celeste would cook together, laughing in the kitchen while Sterling and I watched whatever game was on television. The kids would play in the backyard, their laughter floating through the windows like music. Everything seemed perfect. That's what I thought. That's what we all thought. Picture perfect family, successful son, beautiful grandchildren, happy daughter-in-law. But looking back now, I can see the cracks forming. Little things I dismissed at the time because I wanted to believe everything was fine. About 2 years ago, around early 2023, I noticed Sterling seemed stressed during our Sunday dinners. He'd always been so composed, so confident, the kind of man who had his life under control. But I'd catch him staring off into space during conversations, not really present. When I'd ask if everything was okay, he'd flash that same practice smile and say, "Just work stress. Dad, nothing I can't handle." Celeste changed too, though more gradually, the way a photograph fades in sunlight. She got thinner. Her eyes developed dark circles that makeup couldn't quite hide. She was still attentive, still helpful in the kitchen, but there was something brittle about her energy. Like she was holding herself together through sheer force of will, and any extra pressure might shatter her completely. I mentioned it to Lorraine once, about 6 months ago. We were getting ready for bed after a Sunday dinner. "You think everything's okay with them? Sterling and Celeste?" Lorraine had paused, her hand on the light switch, considering. "I think they're going through something. Marriage is hard sometimes, Thaddeus. Even good marriages have rough patches. But they'll work it out. They love each other. I accepted that explanation because I wanted to. Because the alternative, admitting that something might be seriously wrong, would require asking difficult questions. And I didn't want to be that father, the one who couldn't trust his son to handle his own problems. Sterling was 35 years old, a successful businessman, a grown man. If he needed help, he'd ask for it, right? So I watched from a distance as the cracks grew wider. I noticed Sterling's BMW disappeared, traded in for a more modest Honda Accord. I noticed they stopped talking about vacation plans, stopped mentioning the beach house rental they used to do every summer in Corpus Christi. I noticed Celeste's hands would shake slightly when she poured coffee, and she'd developed this habit of checking her phone constantly with an anxious expression. But I told myself it was normal life stress. Money gets tight sometimes. People get tired. Young parents with 2 kids have a lot on their plates. It's nothing to worry about, just a phase they're working through. 3 months ago, in March, I ran into one of Sterling's former business associates at a networking event downtown. Guy named Mitchell Pemberton. We'd met a few times over the years at various functions. He was one of those overly friendly types, always working the room, always making connections. He pulled me aside near the bar, looked uncomfortable. "Thaddeus, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but is Sterling doing okay? Financially, I mean?" My guard went up immediately. I don't discuss my son's business with outsiders, and Mitchell Pemberton definitely fell into that category. "Why are you asking, Mitchell?" He glanced around, lowered his voice. "I heard some things through the grapevine. About his business partner, about some loans that went bad. I just wanted to check in, see if he needed any help or connections." I thanked him politely and changed the subject as quickly as possible. But his words stuck with me like burrs on clothing. That night, lying in bed next to Lorraine, I thought about asking Sterling directly. But pride is a powerful thing, isn't it? I didn't want him to think I was checking up on him, didn't trust him to handle his business like a man. So I said nothing. That's a decision I'll regret for the rest of my life. Now let me take you to that Saturday, June 14th, 2025, Isaiah's 8th birthday party. We'd been planning it for weeks. Isaiah wanted a superhero theme, specifically Spider-Man. He'd been obsessed with Spider-Man since seeing the latest movie. Celeste had ordered decorations from some online store, spent days transforming their backyard into something straight out of a Marvel comic. Red and blue streamers everywhere, cardboard skyscrapers she'd painted herself, a custom banner that said, "Happy 8th birthday, Isaiah, your friendly neighborhood birthday boy." The party was scheduled to start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They'd rented a bounce house that got delivered Friday evening and set up in the backyard. They'd hired a magician named Marcus the Magnificent who specialized in children's parties. Came highly recommended by several church members. The guest list included family, Isaiah's friends from school, neighbors from Sagewood Lane, and several families from Wheeler Avenue Baptist. About 40 people total, plus kids. I arrived at Sterling's house around noon that Saturday to help set up. It was a beautiful day, temperature in the mid-80s, clear blue sky without a cloud in sight. Perfect party weather. I parked my Cadillac CTS in the driveway behind Sterling's Honda and grabbed the gifts from the trunk. We'd gotten Isaiah a new bike, the kind with training wheels he could graduate from when he was ready, plus some Lego sets he'd been asking for. When I walked in through the front door, I could hear activity in the kitchen. The house smelled like cake and coffee. Celeste was standing at the counter, arranging fruit on a platter with mechanical precision. She was wearing jeans and a yellow blouse, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked up when I entered, and I was struck by how thin she'd gotten. Her collarbones were prominent beneath the fabric of her blouse. "Morning, Dad," she said, and her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Morning, Celeste," I replied, setting the gifts down in the living room beside the growing pile of presents. You feeling all right? You look tired, sweetheart. Just been busy with party planning? She said, turning back to her fruit arrangement. You know how it is. Lots of details to manage. I did know, or I thought I did. I walked into the kitchen and really looked at her. Not just a glance, but really looked. She'd lost at least 15 pounds since Christmas. Her hands, when she picked up a strawberry to place on the platter, trembled slightly. Dark circles under her eyes that concealer couldn't fully hide. Her wedding ring hung loose on her finger. Where's everyone else? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Loren's in the backyard with the kids, making sure the bounce house is anchored properly. Sterling ran to pick up the cake from the bakery. He should be back any minute. The cake. 3 tiers, custom decorated with Spider-Man swinging between frosted skyscrapers. Red and blue piping creating webs across each tier. We'd ordered it from Craftsman Bakery on Washington Avenue, one of the best bakeries in Houston. Cost $300, but it was worth it. Isaiah had been talking about it for days, showing anyone who'd listened the photo Celeste had shown him of what it would look like. I poured myself a cup of coffee from the pot on the counter and watched Celeste work. Her movements were precise but joyless, like someone going through motions they'd performed 1,000 times. She arranged each piece of fruit with careful attention, but her mind seemed miles away. Her phone sat on the counter beside her, and she kept glancing at it every few seconds, checking for messages that never seemed to come. Need any help? I offered. No, I've got it. Thank you, though. Her voice was polite but distant, like she was talking to a stranger rather than her father-in-law of 8 years. Sterling came in about 10 minutes later, carrying a large white bakery box with both hands. His face was flushed, stressed, that vein in his forehead standing out the way it did when he was anxious. He set the box down carefully on the dining room table, handling it like it was made of glass. Traffic was insane on Washington, he said by way of greeting. Then he saw me standing in the kitchen doorway. Hey, Dad, thanks for coming early to help. Wouldn't miss it for the world, I said. Everything all set for the party? Yeah. Just need to get the folding tables set up outside, make sure the food stations are ready, check that the magician has everything he needs. I followed him out to the garage where he had folding tables and chairs stacked against the wall. We started carrying them to the backyard, and that's when I had my chance to really talk to him alone, away from Celeste's ears. Son, I said as we unfolded a table near the back fence, you doing okay? You seem stressed lately. More than usual. Sterling stopped moving, his hands gripping the edge of the table. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. I could see him struggling with something internal, weighing whether to tell me the truth or maintain the facade he'd been keeping up. Just work stuff, Dad, he finally said, not meeting my eyes. Nothing I can't handle. Sterling, I'm your father. We've been through everything together. If something's wrong, if you need help with anything, you can tell me. You know that, right? He looked at me then, and for just a second, I saw real fear in his eyes. Not stress, not worry, but genuine terror. Like a man drowning who can see the surface but can't quite reach it. But then he covered it with that practiced smile he'd been using more and more lately. The one that didn't quite reach his eyes. I'm fine, Dad. We're fine. Everything's fine. There it was again, that word. Fine. I've learned over 67 years that when someone says everything is fine twice in the same breath, nothing is fine at all. But I let it go. I wish to God I hadn't, but I did. We finished setting up the tables and went back inside to help with other preparations. Lorraine was in the backyard with Isaiah and Amara, supervising as they tested out the bounce house. Isaiah was wearing a brand new pair of sneakers, red and blue, to match his Spider-Man theme. Amara had on a purple dress with a tulle skirt that made her look like a little princess. They were laughing, jumping, completely innocent to anything wrong in their world or ours. My brother Vernon arrived around 1:30 with his wife Patricia. They brought a card with money in it and stories about their latest cruise. My sister Claudette came with her husband Frank and a massive dish of her famous baked mac and cheese, the kind with 4 different cheeses and a breadcrumb crust on top. More family members started trickling in over the next 20 minutes. Deshaun, my nephew, who's a detective with Houston PD, came with his wife Kaisha and their 2 kids. Friends from Wheeler Avenue Baptist. Neighbors from Sagewood Lane. By 2 o'clock, there were at least 30 adults and a dozen kids filling the house and spilling into the backyard. The noise level was wonderful. Kids screaming with joy in the bounce house. Adults catching up, laughing, telling stories about their week. Loren's peach cobbler disappeared within 20 minutes of being set out. Someone had brought a Bluetooth speaker and started playing music. Motown classics, mostly Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, Aretha Franklin mixed with some contemporary R&B. The kind of music that makes your foot tap automatically, makes you smile even if you're not trying to. Marcus the Magnificent, the magician, arrived at 2:15 in a bright red vest and black top hat, carrying 2 large cases of equipment. He was a short, energetic man in his 50s with a graying beard. The kids immediately swarmed him, asking about his tricks, trying to peek into his cases. He laughed and promised them the best show they'd ever seen. Sterling was playing host, moving through the party with practiced ease, making sure everyone had drinks, pointing people toward the food, introducing guests who didn't know each other. On the surface, he looked like the perfect host, a successful businessman with the perfect family. But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his smile never quite relaxed. Celeste moved through the party like a ghost, present but not quite there. I watched her interact with guests, saw her force smiles when people complimented the decorations or asked about Isaiah's school year. She gave appropriate responses, said all the right things, but it was all performance. The real Celeste was somewhere else entirely, locked inside her own head with whatever demons she was fighting. The cake sat on the dining room table, majestic in its 3-tiered glory. Spider-Man scaling a frosted skyscraper, red and blue piping creating intricate webs across each layer, 8 candles waiting to be lit at 3 o'clock. The plan was clear at 3. Sterling would call everyone inside. We'd sing Happy Birthday. Isaiah would blow out his candles. Then we'd serve cake with vanilla ice cream to all 43 people. At 2:45, I was standing near the patio door with a plate of Vernon's barbecue ribs, watching the party unfold around me. Isaiah was in his element, surrounded by school friends, showing off his new Lego sets to anyone who'd look. Amara was dancing with her little cousins, her purple dress twirling as she spun. Lorraine was deep in conversation with Claudette and 2 other ladies from church, probably discussing the upcoming women's retreat. Everything was perfect, picture perfect. Then I felt a small hand grab my sleeve. I looked down. Isaiah was standing beside me, and the expression on his face stopped my heart cold. His eyes were wide with fear, his skin pale beneath his brown complexion. He was trembling slightly, and there were tears forming in the corners of his eyes. "Hey, buddy," I said, kneeling down to his level so we were eye to eye. "What's wrong? You okay?" He looked around nervously, making absolutely sure no one else was close enough to hear what he was about to say. Then he pulled me down further and whispered directly into my ear, his voice shaking. "Grandpa, don't let anyone eat the cake." The words were so unexpected, so strange, that for a moment I didn't fully process them. What? Why not, Isaiah? He glanced toward the kitchen where Celeste was standing with her back to us, talking to one of the neighbors. Then he looked back at me, and I saw a tear escape and roll down his cheek. "This morning," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the party noise, I came downstairs real early to get water, maybe 6 o'clock. Mommy was in the kitchen. She didn't know I was there. I was quiet. I saw her take a bottle out of her purse. White pills. She was crushing them up with the back of a spoon, turning them into powder. Then she mixed the powder into the frosting on the cake. All of it, Grandpa. So much powder. My blood turned to ice. Are you absolutely sure, Isaiah? Are you certain that's what you saw? He nodded, another tear escaping. She saw me watching from the doorway. She got really mad, Grandpa. Really mad. Her face changed. She said, if I told anyone, something bad would happen to Daddy. She said I had to keep the secret or our whole family would be destroyed. But I'm so scared, Grandpa. What if people eat the cake? What if something bad happens to everyone? Time slowed down. Everything around me faded into background noise. The party sounds, the music, the laughter, all of it became distant and muffled, like I was underwater. I looked at that beautiful 3-tier cake sitting on the dining room table 20 feet away. I looked at the 43 people scattered throughout the house and backyard. Family, friends, children, innocent people who'd come to celebrate a birthday. I looked back toward the kitchen, and at that exact moment, Celeste turned and our eyes met across the distance. Something passed across her face. Recognition, fear, guilt, a terrible, desperate sadness that made my stomach drop. Then she looked away quickly, turning back to her conversation as if nothing had happened. My mind was racing like an engine about to blow. If Isaiah was telling the truth, and I had absolutely no reason to doubt him, that boy had never lied to me in his life. Then Celeste had poisoned the birthday cake. Why? What pills had she used? How dangerous were they? Was she trying to hurt specific people, or was this something much worse? And I had maybe 15 minutes before someone would call everyone inside to cut that cake. 15 minutes to figure out what to do. 15 minutes to save 43 lives or watch everyone I love die. I squeezed Isaiah's shoulder gently, trying to stay calm for his sake, even though my heart was hammering in my chest. You did the right thing telling me, buddy. You did real good. You're a brave boy, the bravest I know. Now I need you to do something for me. I need you to go outside and play with your cousins. Stay outside, away from the house, until I come get you personally. Okay? And don't say anything to anyone else about this. Can you do that for me? Are you going to stop Mommy? He asked, his voice small and frightened. I'm going to make sure everyone stays safe, I said, looking him directly in the eyes. That's a promise. Your grandpa's got this. Now go on outside and play. He nodded and ran back to the backyard, relief evident in the way his shoulders relaxed. He passed the burden to me, and now I had to figure out what to do with it. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting. 67 years old, and I'd just been told my daughter-in-law had poisoned the birthday cake with enough of something to threaten 43 people. I needed to think. I needed to act. But I couldn't cause a panic. There were children here, elderly people, pregnant women. If I made a scene, if I accused Celeste publicly without proof, it could turn into chaos. People could get hurt in the panic alone. I needed evidence first. I needed to be smart about this. I walked toward the kitchen, forcing my face into a neutral expression, keeping my breathing steady even though my pulse was thundering in my ears. Celeste was rinsing dishes at the sink, her back to the room. She didn't look up when I approached. Need any help in here? I asked, keeping my voice as casual as I could manage. No, Dad, I've got it, she replied without turning around, her voice flat. My eyes scanned the kitchen quickly, looking for anything that might confirm Isaiah's story. That's when I saw the garbage can near the pantry door. It was full, the bag tied closed with a neat knot. If Celeste had used pills from a prescription bottle, that bottle might be in there. It was my only lead. Let me take this trash out for you, I said, Moving toward the garbage can with purpose. Getting pretty full here. Oh, you don't have to do that, Celeste started to protest, finally turning to look at me. No trouble at all, I said, already lifting the bag out of the can. My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure she could hear it. Just heading to the garage anyway to grab some more ice. I carried the trash bag through the house toward the garage, walking at a normal pace, even though every instinct screamed at me to run. Once inside the garage with the door closed behind me, I set the bag down on the concrete floor and tore it open with shaking hands. I dug through the contents frantically. Coffee grounds, paper plates, food scraps, wet napkins, fruit peels, plastic wrap. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely sort through everything. Then, near the bottom of the bag, I saw it. An amber prescription bottle, completely empty. I pulled it out with hands that wouldn't stay steady and held it up to read the label in the garage's fluorescent light. Zolpidem, 10 milligrams tablets. Generic name for Ambien. Prescribed to Celeste R. Bridgewater. Quantity, 30 tablets. Fill date, May 20th, 2025. Prescribing physician, Dr. Helena Martinez. Pharmacy, CVS on Memorial Drive. Refills 0. The bottle was completely, utterly empty. 30 Ambien pills, crushed into powder, mixed into the frosting of a 3-tier birthday cake. The implications hit me like a physical blow to the chest. Ambien is a sleeping medication, prescribed for insomnia. But in high doses, especially for children, it can cause respiratory depression, loss of consciousness, coma, death. 30 pills distributed among 43 people, including children who weigh a fraction of what adults weigh, some who might eat multiple pieces. This wasn't attempted murder. This was attempted mass murder-suicide. My legs almost gave out. I leaned against Sterling's Honda, trying to breathe, trying to think past the panic screaming in my head. Why would Celeste do this? What could possibly drive a mother to poison her own children, her own family, her friends? I looked at my watch with eyes that wouldn't quite focus. 2:52. 8 minutes until 3 o'clock when we'd scheduled cutting the cake. 8 minutes to figure out what to do. I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers and scrolled through my contacts to find my nephew's number. Deshaun Coleman, detective with Houston PD Homicide Division. 38 years old, smart as a whip, trained for crisis situations. Thank God he was here at the party. I hit the call button. He answered on the second ring, his voice relaxed and happy. Uncle Thaddeus, what's up? You need me to grab something? Deshaun, I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say, I said, keeping my voice low and controlled. Don't react. Don't make a scene. Don't alert anyone. I'm in Sterling's garage right now. I need you to come here immediately. Alone. This is a life or death emergency. There was a brief pause. Deshaun was trained for this, understanding instantly when something was seriously wrong. His voice shifted to professional mode. I'm coming. 30 seconds. I hung up and waited, staring at that empty pill bottle in my hand. 25 seconds later, the garage door opened and Deshaun stepped in, his expression shifting from casual party guest to focused detective in an instant. He closed the door behind him. What's going on? He asked. All business now. I handed him the empty pill bottle. Isaiah saw Celeste crushing these pills and mixing them into the birthday cake this morning around 6 a.m., all 30 pills. The cake is sitting on the dining room table right now, and we're supposed to cut it and serve it to 43 people in 7 minutes. Deshaun's face went pale as he read the label. Jesus Christ, are you absolutely sure about this? Isaiah has never lied to me, not once. And I just found this bottle in the trash, empty, prescribed to Celeste 3 weeks ago. The math checks out. Deshaun pulled out his phone immediately. I'm calling this in. We need evidence collection. psychiatric hold, possibly SWAT, depending on how she reacts. But we have to be careful. This many people in an enclosed space, if she panics or has other means. No sirens, I said firmly. No marked cars. We can't cause a panic with this many people here, especially children. Can you keep it quiet? I can try. Plainclothes units, unmarked vehicles. But that is, we're talking about attempted mass murder. This is serious. I know how serious it is, I said, hearing my voice shake for the first time. That's my family in there. That's my son. My grandchildren. He made the call, speaking in low tones, using codes and abbreviations I didn't understand. When he hung up 2 minutes later, he looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on his face before. Fear mixed with determination. Backup is coming. No sirens, plainclothes, unmarked cars. ETA is 10 minutes. Until then, we need to keep everyone away from that cake and keep Celeste calm. Can you delay the cake cutting somehow? I'll handle it, I said, though I had no idea how. We went back inside separately. Deshaun melted back into the party, but I noticed he positioned himself near the dining room where the cake sat, casual but alert. I'd found Lorraine in the living room, laughing with my sister and 2 other ladies from church. I pulled her aside gently, keeping my voice low and calm. Honey, I need you to trust me right now. Don't ask questions, don't react. Just trust me completely. We need to delay cutting the cake. Keep everyone outside and occupied for another 15, maybe 20 minutes. Lorraine searched my face. We've been married 44 years. She can read me better than anyone alive. She saw something in my eyes that told her this was deadly serious. What's wrong, Thaddeus? She whispered, her hand gripping my arm. I'll tell you everything soon. I promise. Right now, I need you to trust me and keep everyone outside. Can you do that? She studied me for 3 more seconds, then nodded slowly. Okay, I trust you. I watched as she composed herself, then went outside and announced in a bright, cheerful voice that Marcus the Magnificent was about to perform his grand finale magic show, and everyone absolutely had to gather around to watch. The kids cheered enthusiastically. The adults followed, happy to watch the entertainment, wondering why the cake was being delayed but not questioning it too hard. That bought us time. Maybe 15 minutes while the magician went through his full routine with extra flourishes. 2:57. 30 minutes until 3 o'clock, but the immediate crisis was delayed. I went back into the dining room. The cake sat there on the table, beautiful and deadly. 3 tiers of poison disguised as celebration. Enough crushed ambien to kill every child here and hospitalize every adult. I wanted to destroy it right then. Throw it in the garbage, smash it into pieces. But Deshaun had been clearly left untouched for evidence. I heard footsteps behind me and turned. It was Celeste. She stood in the doorway between the kitchen and dining room, and for a long moment, we just looked at each other. She knew. I could see it in her eyes, in the way her face had gone completely pale, in the way her hands were shaking at her sides. She knew that I knew. Everything okay, Dad? She asked, but her voice was hollow, empty of any real emotion. I made a split-second decision. We were alone in the dining room. Everyone else was outside watching the magician. This was my chance to get the truth before the police arrived, to understand why. I pulled the empty ambien bottle from my pocket and set it on the table next to the cake. I didn't say anything. Just set it down and waited. All the color drained from Celeste's face. Her legs seemed to buckle and she grabbed the edge of a chair to keep from falling. She stared at the bottle like it was a snake that might bite her. Where did you get that? She whispered. Isaiah saw you this morning, Celeste. He told me everything. For a moment, she just stared at the bottle. Then something inside her broke. Something that had been holding her together for God knows how long finally gave way. Her legs gave out completely, and she slid down to sit on the floor, her back against the wall, her hands covering her face. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice breaking into sobs. "I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's all falling apart. I can't keep smiling and hosting parties and acting like our lives are completely destroyed." I moved closer, kneeling down in front of her but keeping some distance. "What's falling apart, Celeste? Talk to me. Help me understand why you would do this." The words came tumbling out like water from a broken dam. Years of secrets finally breaking free in a flood of confession. Sterling's business partner embezzled everything 2 years ago. Marcus Holloway. Every penny from the company accounts. $3 million, just gone. Sterling trusted him completely, and Marcus destroyed us. Sterling tried to cover the losses, thought he could fix it before anyone found out. He took out loans against the business, against the house, drained our savings, maxed out credit cards. We're $800,000 in debt, Dad. $800,000. The bank is foreclosing on the house. We have 60 days before we're evicted onto the street. My heart sank, but I kept my voice steady. Why didn't Sterling tell me? Why didn't you tell us? I could have helped. I would have helped without hesitation. Because he's ashamed, Celeste said, her voice rising with anguish. He's so ashamed that he failed, that he trusted the wrong person, that he can't provide for his family the way his father did. He's been lying to you for 2 years, pretending everything is fine while we're drowning, pretending to be successful while we can barely afford groceries. And I've been covering for him, smiling through Sunday dinners while I'm dying inside. That's still not a reason to poison people, I said, trying to keep my voice gentle but firm. That's not a reason to hurt your children, Celeste. There are other solutions. We could have helped. I wasn't trying to hurt them. Tears were streaming down her face now, her mascara running in black streaks. Don't you understand? I was trying to save them. I was saving them from the shame, from the humiliation, from growing up poor and knowing that their parents were failures. I was saving Sterling from having to tell you the truth, from seeing the disappointment in your eyes when you found out he'd destroyed everything. The casual horror of what she was describing made my blood run cold. You were going to kill everyone? Including yourself and your children? She nodded, sobbing uncontrollably now. The Ambien would put everyone to sleep, peacefully. We'd all just drift off together at a party, surrounded by family while everyone was happy. No pain, no suffering, no shame. It seemed like a mercy, better than facing what's coming. Better than watching Sterling have a breakdown, watching the kids lose their home, watching our family fall apart in front of everyone. And you thought this was the answer? Mass murder disguised as a birthday party? I thought it was the only answer. She screamed, then caught herself, lowering her voice to a desperate whisper. I've been so tired, Dad. So tired of pretending, of lying, of watching Sterling destroy himself with guilt every single day. I wanted it to end. I wanted all of us to just go to sleep. Together. No more pain. No more shame. Just peace. I heard car doors outside. Quiet, but distinct. Multiple doors. Deshawn's backup had arrived. Celeste, I said as gently as I could manage. You're sick. You're very sick, and you need help. Professional help. But you didn't succeed. Everyone is safe. Your children are safe, playing outside right now. And there's still a chance to fix this, to get you the help you desperately need. I can't go to jail, she whispered, her eyes wide with terror. I can't face everyone knowing what I tried to do. I can't face Isaiah knowing his mother tried to kill him. You're going to have to face it, I said. But first, you're going to get help. Real medical help. They're going to take you to a hospital where doctors can help you. The front door opened quietly, and Deshawn came in with 2 other plainclothes officers, a man and a woman, both moving with calm professionalism. They'd clearly been briefed on the situation. Mrs. Bridgewater? Deshawn said in a gentle but authoritative voice. I'm Detective Coleman, Houston PD. These are Officers Martinez and Thompson. We need you to come with us, please. We're going to take you to a hospital where you can get help. Celeste looked at me, then at Deshawn, then back at me. All the fight had gone out of her. She nodded silently, too exhausted to resist. As the officers helped her to her feet and led her toward the side door to avoid the party guests, she looked back at me one last time. Her face was devastated, destroyed by what she'd tried to do and failed to accomplish. Tell Sterling I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely audible. Tell the kids I love them. Tell them I was just so tired of everything. Then she was gone, led out the side door to an unmarked car waiting in the driveway. I stood there in the dining room, alone with that poisoned cake, and for the first time in 67 years, I felt truly, completely old. The weight of what had almost happened pressed down on me like a physical force. Deshawn came back in with an evidence kit. Crime scene unit is on the way to collect the cake. EMTs are taking her to Memorial Hermann for psychiatric evaluation and hold. Are you okay, Uncle Thaddeus? Was I okay? I just stopped my daughter-in-law from murdering 43 people, including my grandchildren. I will be, I said, which was the best I could manage. I carefully covered the cake with plastic wrap at Deshawn's direction, then wrote a note for the crime scene technicians explaining what Isaiah had witnessed and where I'd found the prescription bottle. Deshawn took photos of everything with his phone, documenting the scene. Sterling arrived back from what turned out to be an unnecessary ice run about 5 minutes later. I met him in the garage before he could go inside, and I told him everything. Every terrible word, every devastating detail. I watched my son's face as he processed what his wife had tried to do. Watched him realize how close he'd come to losing his children, his family, his father, everyone he loved. Watched him understand that his pride and shame had nearly cost 43 people their lives. Watched him slide down the side of his car until he was sitting on the concrete floor, sobbing into his hands with a grief so deep it had no bottom. Dad, he gasped between sobs, his voice raw with anguish. If I just told you the truth, if I just asked for help 2 years ago, none of this would have happened. This is my fault. All of it. I sat down next to him on that cold garage floor, put my arm around my son's shoulders, and let him cry. We'll deal with all of that later. Right now, we have 43 people outside who don't know what almost happened, and we need to protect those children from that knowledge. After 10 minutes of grief, Sterling pulled himself together through sheer force of will. We composed ourselves, straightened our clothes, wiped our faces dry. Then we went back outside to face the party. Lorraine saw me and I gave her the smallest nod possible. It's handled. Relief flooded her face, though she didn't know the details yet. Sterling and I approached the party together, putting on the performance of our lives. We told everyone that Celeste had experienced a sudden medical emergency, severe dehydration and exhaustion from party planning combined with low blood sugar. The paramedics had recommended she go to the hospital for observation and 4 fluids just to be safe. Nobody questioned it. People were sympathetic, offering to help clean up, asking if there was anything they could do. We said we'd still do birthday cake, but we'd have to get new cakes since the special 3-tier cake had been accidentally damaged during the medical emergency. Sterling volunteered to run to Kroger and pick up sheet cakes. He left immediately, grateful for a task to focus on. The party continued around us. The kids didn't care about the change of plans. They were just happy to keep playing. Marcus the Magnificent finished his show to thunderous applause. Adults mingled and talked, assuming it had been a minor medical scare. Isaiah looked at me once from across the backyard, his eyes full of questions. I walked over to him, knelt down, and whispered in his ear, "Everyone is safe because of you. You're a hero, buddy. But let's keep this our secret for now, okay?" We'll talk more later. He nodded, understanding in his young eyes that sometimes adults need to protect other people from scary truths. Sterling returned 30 minutes later with 3 sheet cakes from Kroger, 1 chocolate, 1 vanilla, 1 marble. We sang Happy Birthday with everyone gathered around Isaiah. He blew out his candles and made a wish. We served grocery store cake and vanilla ice cream to 43 people who had no idea they'd almost eaten poison. The party wound down around 5 o'clock. People started leaving in small groups, tired from the afternoon and the sun, full of food, satisfied with the entertainment. They thanked us for a wonderful party, told Isaiah happy birthday one more time, and headed home to their own lives. Nobody knew what had really happened. Only family knew the truth, and we'd agreed to keep it that way to protect the children. That night, Sterling stayed at our house with Isaiah and Amara. Lorraine set them up in the guest room with extra blankets and the kids' favorite stuffed animals. The children fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the party. Sterling, Lorraine, Deshawn, his wife Kaisha, and I sat in our living room until 2 in the morning, making phone calls and plans. We called Celeste's parents in Austin. That was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had in my life. Telling elderly parents that their daughter, their baby girl, had tried to kill her entire family, including their grandchildren. Celeste's mother sobbed on the phone for 20 minutes. Her father couldn't even speak, just made broken sounds of grief. We contacted a crisis mental health attorney that Deshawn recommended, a woman named Victoria Chen, who specialized in cases where severe mental illness led to criminal behavior. She agreed to meet with us the next day. We made arrangements for Celeste to undergo a full psychiatric evaluation at Memorial Hermann's psychiatric wing. Deshawn explained that because of the severity of what she'd attempted, she'd be held for at least 72 hours initially, then longer depending on the evaluation results. The investigation moved forward quietly over the next few days and weeks. The district attorney's office was willing to work with us because no one had actually been harmed, and because Celeste immediately admitted everything and agreed to accept long-term psychiatric care. Her confession was full and detailed, holding nothing back. She was diagnosed with severe major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and what they called a major depressive episode with psychotic features. The financial stress, the constant lying, the shame of failure had broken something fundamental in her mind. She genuinely believed, in her distorted thinking, that she was saving her family from suffering by ending all their lives together. The plea deal took 6 weeks to finalize. Celeste pled guilty to 43 counts of attempted murder. In exchange for her plea and agreement to long-term treatment, she was sentenced to commitment at Rusk State Hospital, a secure psychiatric facility, for a minimum of 7 years with the possibility of extended commitment based on ongoing evaluations. She'd be on medication, in therapy, under constant supervision. She'd never be allowed unsupervised contact with Myers again, including her own children. Sterling filed for divorce. He didn't want to, still loved her in some broken, complicated way, but he had to protect Isaiah and Amara. The divorce was finalized in 8 weeks. Sterling got full custody. Celeste's parental rights were terminated. The kids were told their mother was very sick in her brain, that she needed special doctors and medicine to help her think correctly again. Isaiah understood more than Amara did. He'd seen what he'd seen. But we got both kids into therapy with a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. They're still going twice a month. As for the financial crisis that had started this whole nightmare, I did what any father would do. I paid off every penny of the $800,000 in debt. The house was saved from foreclosure. But Sterling and I had a long, painful conversation about what came next. "I can't stay in that house, Dad," Sterling said. "Every time I walk into that kitchen, I see Celeste crushing those pills. I can't do it." So we sold the house in Memorial, and Sterling moved into a smaller, more modest home in Maryland. 3 bedrooms instead of 4. smaller yard. More affordable on his actual income instead of the pretend income he'd been living on. We restructured his business completely, getting him out from under the failed consulting firm and into a new venture with proper oversight and protections. I became a silent partner, not because he asked, but because I insisted. No more secrets, no more shame. Sterling started therapy too. Individual therapy twice a week, working through the shame, the guilt, the trauma of almost losing everything because he was too proud to ask for help. We had a conversation one night, about 3 weeks after the party, sitting on my back porch with drinks in our hands. Just father and son, talking like we should have talked 2 years earlier. "Dad," Sterling said, staring into his glass, "if I just told you the truth when Marcus embezzled the money, if I just swallowed my pride and asked for help, Celeste wouldn't have broken. Isaiah wouldn't have nightmares. None of this would have happened. Maybe," I said. "Or maybe Celeste was always fragile in ways we didn't see, and this would have happened eventually. Mental illness doesn't follow logic, son. But I'll tell you what I do know. Your son saved 43 lives because you raised him to tell the truth even when he was scared. Even when he'd been threatened, you did that. You taught him that. That's the kind of father you are. Now you just have to keep being that father and let me be the kind of grandfather who helps when you need it." Isaiah turned 9 last month. We had a small party, just immediate family. Lorraine, Sterling, Amara, Vernon and Patricia, Claudette and Frank, Deshaun and Kaisha with their kids. 10 people total in our backyard. No cake. Isaiah asked for ice cream sundaes instead, and absolutely nobody argued. We sang "Happy Birthday." He blew out candles on a cookie, and we all made our own sundaes with every topping imaginable. He's doing better. Still has nightmares sometimes where he wakes up crying. Still asks questions about why his mommy did what she did. Questions that don't have easy answers. But he's resilient in the way children are, adapting and growing and learning to carry what happened. Amara is 6 now, thriving in 1st grade, full of energy and joy. She doesn't remember much from that party. Thank God. She knows her mother is sick and can't live with them anymore, but it's an abstract concept at her age. More like mommy lives far away than any real understanding of what almost happened. Celeste writes letters from Rusk State Hospital. 1 letter every month, addressed to Sterling. He doesn't read them, can't bring himself to. But he keeps them in a locked box in his closet for when Isaiah and Amara are older, maybe 18 or 20, in case they want to understand their mother's mind and what went wrong. Celeste's parents visit her twice a month, making the drive from Austin to Rusk. They're good people dealing with an impossible situation. They send cards to the kids on birthdays and holidays, maintaining whatever relationship they can. We don't discourage it. Isaiah and Amara deserve to know that side of their family, the parts that aren't broken. As for me, I learned something on June 14th, 2025 that I'll carry for the rest of my life. I learned that the biggest threats to your family don't always come from outside. Sometimes they come from within, from people you trust completely, from mental illness that nobody recognizes until it's almost too late. I learned that financial problems are never worth killing over, never worth dying over, never worth keeping secret until they destroy you. I learned that children see things adults miss because they're paying attention in different ways. Isaiah noticed his mother's strange behavior that morning because he loved her, because he watched her carefully, because children are tuned into their parents' emotions in ways we forget. And he trusted his instincts enough to tell me even though he was terrified, even though she'd threatened him. And I learned that 17 minutes can be the difference between a tragedy that destroys 43 lives and a crisis that, as painful as it is, can be survived and healed from. 17 minutes. That's all the time I had from when Isaiah grabbed my sleeve to when we would have cut that cake. 17 minutes to believe him, to investigate, to find proof, to call for help, to delay the inevitable. Would you have believed an 8-year-old child if he told you his mother poisoned the birthday cake? Would you have acted fast enough? Would you have stayed calm with 43 people in your house, including children, and a ticking clock counting down to mass murder? Would you have known what to do? I hope you never have to find out. But if you're ever in a situation where a child tells you something that seems impossible, something that sounds too terrible to be true, I'm begging you to listen. Really listen. Children don't usually lie about the big things. They see what we miss. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to make a split-second decision that saved someone's life? Have you ever seen mental illness disguised as normal stress until it was almost too late? Share your story if you feel comfortable. And if this story reminded you of anything important, share it. Share it with parents, with grandparents, with anyone who needs to remember that truth matters, that listening matters, that mental health matters more than pride or shame or keeping up appearances. Thank you for watching this all the way through. I know it was heavy. I know it was difficult. These aren't easy stories to tell or to hear. But they're real, and they're important, and they need to be told. Remember, trust your instincts. Listen to the people who love you, especially children. Pay attention to the signs of mental health crisis in your family and friends. And never, ever assume everything is fine just because it looks good on the surface. And if you or someone you know is struggling with depression, anxiety, or thoughts of suicide, please reach out for help. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 988. There are resources available. There are people who care. You don't have to face it alone, and you definitely don't have to solve it with permanent solutions to temporary problems. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Leave a like if this story moved you or taught you something. And most importantly, go hug your family today. Tell them you love them. Ask them how they're really doing, not just if they're fine. I'll see you in the next story. Stay safe out there, pay attention, and remember that 17 minutes can change everything.